Welcome back. Well, the UN is promising a lot, but can it deliver on its promise? The complex reasons behind the price rises suggest it'll be tough. You've got things like the switch from food production to biofuels, meaning more food is being grown to drive cars rather than to eat. For example, the jump in maize production in recent years has gone to biofuels, not food. At the same time, wheat harvests in Australia and Canada have seen production levels fall. And with growing demand and low supply, what happens? The prices soar. And then there's the growing middle classes in China and India with more money in their pockets. They're quite simply eating more, and that creates even more demand. Still with us, our guests in Rome, Abdulreza Abbasian in Paris, Max Kaiser in New York, Devrik Veli. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. I'm going to go back to Paris and speak to Max Kaiser. Now, I want to pick up on a point I made there about those growing middle classes. We mentioned China and India, but it's happening everywhere. You have population growth, you have more people eating more food. Not really much you can do about that, is there?
The demand for these products, of course, is going up as you have a global middle class growing up. So there's tremendous constraint on the supply side, meeting demand, that's for sure. To refer back to what was said earlier about giving local farmers a chance to grow local produce, yes, that's a great idea. All we have to do is get countries like the U.S. and European countries to stop subsidizing their local growers to allow farmers around the world to compete. Farmers around the world should be able to compete if the U.S. and Europe allows them to compete. So there probably is food available in these countries. There has to be more of a comprehensive fair trade going forward. Hopefully the World Bank would be able to address those issues.
And those initiatives you mentioned there we would hope, address the issue of supply. What I'd like to get from you is whether supply will bring prices right down or not, or are we looking at, as we look at, say, with oil, for example, there's a new floor with the level of oil and it's not going to go back down to the prices that we might have enjoyed a while ago?
Well, you know, supply and demand, the market should figure out what the price should be. Government should not interfere with that mechanism as they're doing now. In the U.S., for example, Walmart restricting the purchase of rice is restricting the market mechanism to find a price for this commodity. You know, the demand obviously is going to go up. The supply, if it means higher prices, that can be dealt with, but not if at the same time there's an initiative by these banks, as I mentioned earlier, to flood these markets with excess money supply, which has the effect of driving the price up artificially in a lot of ways. And that's what the real problem, as I see it, is that the reason these prices are getting out of control is because there are hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of banking products and money supply growth that has artificially boosted the prices way beyond even the resurgent demand.
Quick thought from Abdulreza in Rome, just before I go back to New York, on what Max Kaiser's been saying there. What do you make of that, this idea that throwing more money at it is actually maybe not the immediate solution?
Well, I don't think he said I actually totally agree with whatever was said. It's absolutely what needs to be done. And the fact is that what we are experiencing today, these sort of high prices, are probably a bit higher than it should have been if it wasn't a speculation. And one have to accept also the fact that prices are not going to go back to the low prices that we had for a very good reason, that they were artificially low because of high subsidies. US, Europeans, a lot of OECD countries generated all these huge surpluses. It made it almost impossible for developing countries to compete with those sort of low prices. So if today we say we need to invest in agriculture in these countries, it is in a way to say, well, look, somehow you guys can produce it. We can help you to produce it, and perhaps that will also generate, employment and so forth, which is what also the World Bank Development Report was saying. It's been a neglect of agriculture sector. So really, I don't think there is a big disagreement here. I totally agree. How we're going to do it is the key issue. And but you know, UN hopefully this time is not alone in this, and it looks like international institutions, they're all coming together. The meeting I just mentioned to in June, I mean, just to give this importance, President Sarkozy has agreed to attend, President Lula has agreed to attend, and Mr. Moore will be attending this. And I'm sure many, many other heads of states are coming. I hope, and I really, really hope, this is not going to be another big UN meeting for nothing. I think this time we have all got the point. The message is very clear. We have to invest in agriculture in a proper, sustainable way. There is no intention of manipulating the market. I'm absolutely, I I agree with the comment made that the market will find its price, but let's not distort, let's not ban exports, let's not put restrictions left and right, and let's have an even play for everyone.
If you forgive me interrupting, the common thread we're very much getting is that we've got to get more growing, more local growing going on. Let's get a thought on that from New York and from Devrik Veli, because as I understand it, sir, you were part of a targeted seeds and tools program in Indonesia a few years ago. What sort of success did you see there with that?
Well, the case of Indonesia was that there was a lot of displacement due to a conflict, and that's where Action Against Hunger was working at this time, bringing assistance to the displaced population. So I mean, population disrupted from their own source of seeds and their usual business. So we used to distribute seeds for them to be able to plant and to ensure enough food production for the next planting season, and that was quite successful actually. There was a need to reintroduce seeds for the displaced population. Just what I want to say is the points made just before by my colleagues are perfectly true. There's definitely a big need of in-depth intervention to avoid a major crisis and a bad evolution of the situation. At Action Against Hunger, we are working in 42 countries, and our team on the ground are actually on alert to assess the magnitude of the problem for the poorest population and to discuss the way of how we can intervene right now and also for the mid and long term. Right now, we didn't see any a big improvement in our therapeutic feeding center, meaning that there was no drastic problem of malnutrition or acute and severe malnutrition, but we are definitely worried that it might happen in the future if there's not something done on the long term for the poorest part of the population.
Max Kaiser, worried about. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you just because we are a little short on time, and I want to make sure we get cover off all our topics. Max Kaiser in Paris. I want to quickly touch on biofuels. We talk about it a lot these days, but is it really, in this case, the ultimate two-edged sword, sacrificing food for fuel? On top of that, you get President Bush urging farmers to switch to ethanol production and away from food.
Biofuels don't make any sense. They're not energy efficient. It's a pure pork giveaway to farmers who are already being given huge subsidies in America, the corn farmers, as was noted earlier.
So why are we so caught up in them? If they don't work, why are we so caught up in them?
Because, in America, things that are sold are bought. America has the greatest megaphone in the world to sell ideas, and people buy these ideas. The people in the World Bank and the people in these other institutions need to come forward and tell the farmers and the lobbyists in America that biofuels is a catastrophe, it's economically unsound, and it's just another giveaway to farmers in America who are taking too much of the global profits in the agricultural business. The problem is that this disaster, okay, we need money immediately for people to buy food, of course, but every time we see a disaster like this, usually what happens is the major agricultural players move in, take advantage of this disaster to increase their market share, to make it harder for local farmers to compete. And is the UN standing up for these local farmers at the end of the day? They try the best that they can, but unless there is a broader political initiative to stop the co-option of agricultural business by a few monopolists, this problem is just going to get worse and worse.
Final quick thought from Devrik Veli in New York, because you're the man on the ground who goes out and sees these things that are happening around the world, particularly developing world. Is what the UN doing right? Will it work?
Well, it will definitely work if it's done with a big panel of interventions. Also, if it's done really in agreement and in partnership with non-governmental organizations such as Action Against Hunger, but also other organizations working in fighting against hunger. It will work with if local authorities are really involved. It will work if the big companies, the big structure, the big players are involved into looking at in the same way at how we can develop the population and the poorest population of the developing countries.
Okay, then, gentlemen, that is where we're going to have to leave it.
UN have to work all together.
We're all out of time on Inside Story, but thank you very much for joining us in this discussion, and thank you, our viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. Goodbye for now.